Hi readers, welcome back to my channel, Lila Wanders and Reads. Lee here, and welcome to the final Black History Month edition of February. And this edition is the history edition. Finally, some history and not just fiction. What I had said I was gonna, sorry, I'm just rearranging my shit here. What I had said I was gonna do this month was feature each week books by Black authors or about Black characters. But I decided finally that I needed to get some actual history in here. And it is not lost on me that each of these books, as far as I can tell, are written by white men. But it is what it is. This is what I've got. No new books were bought. These are all books that I have had for a while. So I've ordered these by date that whatever the subject is occurs ish. I think I've got it. And let's just dive right in. First off, one I bought actually in Eastern North Carolina, I think. This is the 2021 Pulitzer Prize winner for general fiction, and that is David Zucchino's Wilmington's Lie, The Murderous Coup of 1898 and the Rise of White Supremacy. And before I get started, I did want to add one thing. There are a lot of people lately who complain about how they don't teach history in school anymore. But then they're like, when you try to, they're like, oh, not that history. And these are some examples. From Pulitzer Prize winner, I guess he's won another Pulitzer Prize, David Zucchino, comes a searing account of the Wilmington Massacre and coup of 1898, a rare violent overthrow of an elected government within the United States. By 1898, Wilmington, North Carolina was a shining example of a mixed-race community. But across the South, white supremacist Democrats were working to reverse the advances made by Black citizens. In North Carolina, they devised a coordinated campaign of intimidation and violence that culminated in Wilmington on November 10, 1898, when 2,000 heavily armed white night riders swarmed through the city, forcing city officials and leading Black citizens to flee at gunpoint, terrorizing women and children, and shooting at least 60 Black men dead in the streets. This brutal insurrection halted gains made by Blacks in Wilmington and restored racism as official government policy, cementing white rule for another 70 years. Wilmington's Lie weaves together individual stories of hate and brutality, resulting in a dramatic and definitive account of a forgotten chapter in American history. Zucchino, I believe, has a North Carolina connection, and I don't have that on me, although, so one of the things I did for a couple of these books was look at the reviews on Amazon. I don't know why I do that to myself. This one woman gave this a 1 or 2 star because she said she read a New York Times review and it promised to talk more about other acts such as Tulsa Massacre, but this was all about Wilmington and probably a little TMI. And I read the New York Times book review on this. It doesn't mention the Tulsa Race Massacre at all. Nothing on the back of this indicates that it would be anything about anything but Wilmington. So, I'm not sure what book review she read or what she thought she was going to get when she picked up a book called Wilmington's Lie, The Murderous Coup of 1898. What? Anyway, I've not read this yet. This was published in 2020, I believe. Of course, now it's not going to... Yeah. Hardcover 2020, this edition January 2021. So I bought it since I moved in here, just haven't gotten to it yet. Next up, speaking of the Tulsa Race Massacre, is The Burning by Tim Madigan, the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921. This is the 100th anniversary edition. Is Tim Madigan still alive? Okay, sorry. It's the 100th anniversary edition of the Tulsa Race Massacre, not Tim Madigan's publication of this book. Because this was copyrighted 2001. Okay. Featuring a new afterword, The Burning skillfully places the Tulsa Massacre in a broader historical context. Rather than an exception, the massacre was completely consistent with that time in the United States, an era of Jim Crow, widespread lynching, and racism endorsed and promulgated at the highest levels of society. Such were the foundations of the systemic racism at the root of our problems today. On the morning of June 1st, 1921, a white mob numbering in the thousands marched across the railroad tracks dividing black from white in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and obliterated a black community then celebrated as one of America's most prosperous. 34 square blocks of Tulsa's Greenwood community, known then as the Negro Wall Street of America, were reduced to smoldering rubble. With chilling details, humanity, and the narrative thrust of compelling fiction, The Burning recreates the town of Greenwood at the height of its prosperity, explores the currents of hatred, racism, and mistrust between its black residents and neighboring Tulsa's white population, narrates events leading up to and including Greenwood's annihilation, and documents the subsequent silence to that surrounded the tragedy. This is another one I have not read. Oh, okay. I'm not going to sit here and start reading it here. But the next book I'm going to talk is one of the 100 notable books of 2017. I have had this book. I had this book for a while. I don't remember when I bought it, and I don't have my phone here to look it up. I have read this one. I read this the summer after the murder of George Floyd, and it still resonates with me today. I am talking about Timothy B. Tyson's The Blood of Emmett Till. This is a must-read, in my opinion. After I read this, I went and watched some documentaries, and I'm just heartbroken for the mother of Emmett Till, and here's James Baldwin again. Spoiler alert, tomorrow I'm going to finish out my videos for February with an episode on James Baldwin. And I opened Emmett Till up to, this is before I started tabbing, and I just randomly opened it to this page where I have highlighted, "Not everything that is faced can be changed," Baldwin instructs, "but nothing can be changed until it is faced." And anywho, let me get back to The Blood of Emmett Till. If you do not know this story, then I think you are missing a key part of history, and I highly recommend it. In 1955, white men in the Mississippi Delta lynched a 14-year-old from Chicago named Emmett Till. His murder was part of a wave of white terrorism in the wake of the 1954 Supreme Court decision that declared public school segregation unconstitutional. Only weeks later, Rosa Parks thought about young Emmett as she refused to move to the back of a city bus in Montgomery, Alabama. That is another great book that I really wish I had brought down here. I recently reread it last year, I believe. That is The Montgomery Bus Boycott and the Women Who Started It. Very important work. 5 years later, black students who called themselves the Emmett Till Generation launched sit-in campaigns that turned the struggle for civil rights into a mass movement. But what actually happened to Emmett Till? Not the icon of injustice, but the flesh and blood boy. Part detective story, part political history, this extraordinary New York Times bestseller re-examines the most notorious hate crime in American history, drawing on a wealth of new evidence, including a shocking admission of Till's innocence from the woman in whose name he was killed. There was something about her in the news over the past 1 or 2 years. I blocked it from my memory. I don't remember what it is, but she was still alive up until, she may still be alive. I don't know. Anywho. Finally, this is a Edgar Award finalist. This is The Lynching, the epic courtroom battle that brought down the Klan by Lawrence Leamer. And before I talk about this, I just want to say, it's funny, I get up here on camera and I'm like, I only have these 4 books. And then as I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh, I have that book, I have that book, I have that book. But here I am, and I can't stop, so anywho. In March 1981, so this was 1955, we're up to more current times. Henry Hayes and James Knowles, members of the United Klans of America, the largest and most dangerous Klan organization in the United States, picked up 19-year-old Michael Donald on the streets of Mobile, Alabama. They were seeking retaliation after a largely black jury failed to convict a black man accused of murdering a white policeman. Hayes and Knowles beat Donald, cut his throat, and left his body hanging from a tree branch in a racially mixed residential neighborhood. Arrested, charged, and convicted, Hayes was sentenced to death, the first time in more than half a century that the state of Alabama had given that penalty to a white man for killing a black man. Morris Dees, the co-founder of the Southern Poverty Law Center, saw the case as an opportunity to file a lawsuit against the UKA. His colleagues said his lawsuit was impossible to win and a folly, but Dees had heard that before. I think there's some controversy about him. I don't know what it is. On behalf of Michael's grieving mother, Miss Beulah Donald, Dees filed a first-of-its-kind civil suit and charged the Klan organization and its leaders with conspiracy. He proceeded to put the Klan leaders on trial, which produced some of the most audacious testimony of any civil rights case, as well as a stunning and precedent-setting verdict. Dees destroyed the UKA and created a weapon that the SPLC used time and time again against other racist organizations. So, this is a case I had not heard of. In 1981, I was like 10 or 11. And I would not have been exposed to news, really. Oh, shit. They show a picture of the young man who was lynched. It's awful. I was not expecting to see that. However, just because things are awful and make you uncomfortable, I have to go back to Baldwin and say, you gotta find it. You gotta face it. Is that what he said? God damn it. God damn it, Lee. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And so, I have a book coming in really soon, tomorrow, inshallah, that I have a feeling is going to make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't read it. And I think that same goes with history. If it makes you uncomfortable, you should probably look at it a little more closely and see if you can figure out why it makes you uncomfortable. Anywho, I'll get off my soapbox now. I highly recommend The Blood of Emmett Till. I can't wait to read each of these books, and I'm really kind of sad because there just are not enough hours in the day to read. I need to win the lottery and become a billionaire or a millionaire and then just have time to read. Anywho, if you have any other recommendations for Black history, Black American history, I'd love to hear them. I have, I struggled. Before I realized I had these books, I struggled to try to think of history books, and all I could think of was the ones that I have on World War II, which I've already showcased. But then I've got thousands of books, and of course I had some. Anywho, if you stuck with me this long, I appreciate you, and always, thanks for sticking with me on my journey. Happy reading!